So I'm just going to introduce myself. My name's Adam Northey. I'm with DAF and based in Rockhampton, and kind of been looking after the projector for quite some time now. So we've just as you guys all know, we've just recently pushed through an update into Projector, which is brought across the perceptions of practices survey, I think we're calling it now. Some people might know it. It used to be called the social indicator survey. So it's just been pushed across. So we have Meg Katarina Katakis, sorry, to hear from the Office of Great Barrier Reef to talk about the update. So these are the guys that designed the survey. We really just implemented it into Projector. So the plan is they'll go through, run through, 5 to 10 minutes of presentation about it, how it works, walk you guys through how to do it, and all that sort of stuff. And then at the end, we'll have a section where we'll have some question and answers. So if you can hold any questions you have off until then. I'll just also add, we're recording this part of the session right now. And we'll post this up onto the website when we're finished. We'll turn the recording off for the questions. So that won't get posted up onto the website. So I'll pass it over to you ladies.
Thanks, Adam. So, yep, Meg Bickle, Katarina. So we are from Office of the Great Barrier Reef and World Heritage, and the Perceptions of Practices survey is our baby, which we're handing over to you today. So Katarina is going to just take us through a bit of brief background around the changes that have been made and why. I'm just going to share my screen. Hopefully that has worked. Is everybody seeing that?
Yeah.
Awesome. Over to you, Katarina.
Yes, so as Adam mentioned right at the start, we've renamed the survey the Perceptions of Practices survey. It was previously the Social Monitoring Survey. And a couple of reasons behind that. We'd got some feedback around social monitoring seeming a bit big brotherish. So we changed the name there, and also just broadened it out really, because it's not just the social factors that we're looking at, and it really is around people's perceptions of the practices that they're changing.
I'm sorry, I'm just having some issues with now having to change the slide. It's not going to change. No, I need to go into this view. Okay, now it should work, hopefully. No, it's not changing on there. It's exactly what I was talking about, things not working. I go into that view. Yes.
So I'll just quickly touch on what the main changes were. So the biggest change is that now the survey is accessible through Projector. So if you've been involved in a project before and have completed the social monitoring survey, it was in survey 123, or in some organisations had it within their own system. It's now in Projector, which should help make it a bit easier to access, or at least there's one less step that you have to go through to be able to get to the survey. We did quite extensive consultation before now, and have changed the wording of the questions to be a little bit more conversational than what they were previously. And as part of that, we have before and after versions of the question. So the questions are worded slightly differently depending on whether you're delivering it at the beginning of a project or at the end of a project. So most of the indicators have, we're measuring a lot of the same indicators as what we were before. We have included now some demographic questions as well at the end, which we'll get to later. So just quickly touching on why we collect this data and what we use it for. If you have been involved in a project previously, this may look familiar to you. So we do put together reports for the project to look at, this is how people are responding. These are the sorts of interventions that might help to increase uptake and long-term engagement with a particular practice. We also then develop a little fact sheet that can go back to landholders as part of the project to help close the loop, but it can also be used as a communication tool as well, and to help foster group norms, which I'm sure you hear us bang on about in our meetings that we hold about the data. The other use that we have with the data is to report against the human dimensions target as part of the water quality improvement plan. So this is part of the report card that's online at the moment, and we use this data to help share more of the landholders' stories and perceptions of the practices. So rather than just presenting the practice data and how what uptake there is across regions, we can present as well what are some of the barriers that people are facing, what helps people engage in that thing, to provide a bit more of that human story. And now I'll hand over to Meg.
Okay. So let me just do away with that and see if I can bring that up.
Yes.
Awesome. Okay. Now for the fun stuff. So this is really just taking you through the functionality of the survey now that it's in Projector. So assuming you're all very familiar with setting up a project in Projector, what you'll see now when you set up a project is as follows. A new feature. These are the icons that take you to the surveys. So 2 icons, one for the initial survey at the beginning of the project and one for the implemented survey at the end. So take you straight in there. The first thing you'll see is this pop-up screen, which enables you now to actually email yourself this link. It essentially just opens up the survey online for you, but I guess you can also use this to send the link through to a landholder. So we probably would caution, I guess, against using this option too frequently. There'll be an occasion every now and then where perhaps a landholder really is insistent that it's their preference that they complete the survey independently, and that probably wasn't really an option previously. You can email that link to them now and they can actually complete the survey themselves online. I guess because we see this whole process as being an opportunity to have a conversation with the landholder, I would suggest that, yeah, I mean, use this functionality if it really does seem like the best option. But otherwise, I guess we'd encourage everybody to take the opportunity to do the survey with the landholder on the property, as it does give you opportunities to have a conversation and learn something perhaps that you hadn't understood about that person previously.
Adam's I'll just put it so it's in the recording, has put in a comment, if the social survey icons don't show for you, you'll have to clear your cache. Is that what it is? In the browser.
I opened it up yesterday and they weren't there for me. So Adam came to the rescue. You better explain, Adam.
Yeah, it'll just be depending on how your browser's set up. Yeah, sometimes if your cache hasn't been cleared in a while, they mightn't show. So, yeah, Meg had issues with that yesterday. We couldn't get it to show, and yeah, once we cleared the cache, it showed. So if it's not showing up for you, just clear the cache in your browser.
Yeah, I had a minor heart attack, but it was there. It was all good. Okay, so basically straight into the survey now. This is a prompt here at the top, I guess, just to remind you, please don't pay any attention to the detail. I've just put a dummy project and responses in there, but just to remind you or the landholder what the practices are that you're actually working on. This is really important. This information, you really are required to take every landholder through to explain to them exactly what this survey is, what exactly, how long it might take, what the purpose of the survey is, what the data is used for. So this all has to be done to be in accordance with the Privacy Act. So we really do have to explain what the where the data is going, what it's being used for, and also to really emphasise the fact that it is de-identified. The information is only ever going to be used, aggregated, and so nothing that would personally identify them will ever be passed across to us. And of course, this survey is entirely voluntary. No landholder is required to complete it. I guess the obligation on project providers is that you at least provide the opportunity for them to complete the survey. If they don't want to, they don't need to. But what we would ask is if they do choose not to do the survey, please do still go in here and click no, so that we know that you've actually at least tried. It's important, I guess, otherwise you might have us chasing you up. I don't know. So should they consent, it takes you straight into the survey. We are interested to know whether or not you did forward this to the grazier. This is set up as a grazing example to the landholder to complete independently. So I guess it just gives us the ability to have a look at whether there is any kind of variation in the types of responses that we're getting, or if it's you as the Extension Officer completing the survey. You click the practice. We won't go through what the questions are necessarily or what their purpose is today. This is really just about the functionality. So there's a scale that applies for each of these questions. I guess the key things to note here are with the barriers and motivations questions. So they're asked to select up to 3 motivations in this question. And so the way that it's been built in Projector is that essentially they can only click 3 and then it locks. So yeah, that's just so that we don't, obviously, as in the past we used to get sometimes more than 3 answers, which made it tricky from an analysis perspective. The main thing to note with the barriers question, again, up to 3, they don't have to select 3, but if they choose the option, which I can't see, there are no challenges or barriers, then the survey locks just on that one option. Obviously, it doesn't make sense if they're saying that there are no challenges or barriers to then go on to select challenges or barriers. So that's the only thing to note there. I guess the next set of questions then we would ask that you, this is going on to the demographic questions next. I think it's important that you do actually preface this. Well, it's up to you how you preface this. It's a suggestion that while some of this information might seem obvious, it is unfair for us to make any assumptions about the landholder. So I guess it's just a good way of kind of leading into these questions. So assuming they're happy to answer these questions, they are a set of fairly recognisable questions that I don't think many people are going to have an issue with answering. And I guess the key thing to note here with the education related question. We haven't set it up so that it's what is the highest level of education that you've attained, which is a fairly typical way of presenting this. We've put in options that cover off on the sorts of things that I think we would probably expect to see from the ag sector, including this one, industry-specific training, short course or equivalent. So, and anything from this point on, so from industry-specific training down to postgrad, actually opens up this question, which just gives us an idea of what field of study that was in. Have I missed anything? Okay. No, good. Okay, so at this point, you hit submit, and what I'll have to do is go back in here, and I'll have to, oops, refresh and go back into that same project. And what you'll notice now is that the icon has changed to red, which means that the survey is locked. You can't access it from this point. That's quite intentional. I guess we don't want to have people revisiting these questions down the track. The purpose is to ask it at the point in time that's relevant to the asking of the questions. So moving on to the implemented survey, it's going to look exactly the same. The questions, as Katerina pointed out, some of them have actually been written so that they are in the language of after, as opposed to pre. So I think the only thing to mention here was that when it comes to the demographic questions, if you've already captured this information at the beginning, there's actually no need to ask this same set of questions a second time. Nothing will have changed. But you can, if they choose not to answer them at the beginning of the project, they may be happy to answer them at the end of the project. So at one time point is all that's required for that. And again, I can do the same thing again. The icon will have locked out, I think, although I didn't actually tick anything. I feel like I've missed something important, but there. So you've got now two completed surveys. So I'll stop sharing my screen. I do feel like I've forgotten something, but that's basically it. That's the functionality of the tests. I can't do two things at once. Yeah. I'll ask Adam or Katerina if I did miss anything in there that you can think of.
I don't know. Not in the questions. No. The only thing I was going to say is, do you just want to cover what sort of information you now get when this comes across to you guys? What sort of information you see?
Yeah. I'll let Katerina answer that one.
Yeah. So one of the which I probably should have covered at the start. One of the other reasons we moved to Projector is that now we will be able to link the practice data as well as what was the social monitoring data. So what we receive though is de-identified practice data. So none of the site-specific information will come across. We'll just see the responses to the practices and then the responses to the perceptions of practices survey as well, which means that we can better analyse the data and have a look at what's predicting practice changes and what's contributing to it and what's not.
Yeah, so you guys don't get any of the spatial data at all. You just see what the practices were before and after, plus the responses to those the perceptions of practice surveys.
Yep. Yeah, it's going to make Katarina's life a hell of a lot easier than previously dealing with survey 1, 2, 3. So everything is nicely aligned now. So we're very excited about this and what it means for us.
And that's probably, you know, one of the other things into why we pulled it across into Projector is that when we did try and align, you know, the stuff that was entered into survey 1, 2, 3 in across trying to link it to the practice change stuff, it was really quite hard because, you know, project space 1 is different to project 1 with no space. So it is hard. There's a lot of manual linking and stuff like that. So, yes. Now, is there any?
Can I ask a quick?
Nick's got something to add.
So before we turn off recording and throw it more broadly, so can you reflect on the point in time that you expect the initial survey to be done and then the follow-up survey? So the point of project design and then implementation that would trigger those?
Yeah, well, everything is set up to align with what you would ordinarily do, I assume, when putting in the management practice data, answering those questions. So at the beginning of the project, obviously the questions are set up to reflect what someone's thoughts are about what they're about to undertake. So the expectation is that they wouldn't have begun to implement the practice change at the point at which you're asking those questions in the initial survey. And again, presumably at the end point of the project where the practice change has been implemented, where you're going back to look at whatever the second point in time data is, that would be when you would ask those questions. Again, they've been written in such a way as to reflect on the practice change has been implemented and how that person feels about that at that particular point in time. So that could be, it depends on the project, but it could be a year or 2 years between the two surveys. And what we do obviously is look at the initial surveys. Katarina runs that analysis and puts together those reports, and we do the project briefings at the beginning of a project. So if we see a pattern of responding from your cohort that you've engaged in your project, and we can make some recommendations at that early stage about interventions that might help with you know, shifting attitudes or shifting perceptions that might lead to, I guess, a better outcome for the project or for the landholder. You'll hear from us at that early point. And then obviously we are then at the second point in time do the same again and are able to, and will be in a better position now as it's in Projector to actually have that line of sight from beginning to end of project for an individual landholder. So we will be able to look at if there's a meaningful shift in people's perceptions as a result of having been in that project. There's been some, like Adam was just saying, there's been some difficulty with that in the past of being able to link individual data sets across that time frame, just simply because of the way that the project IDs relied on humans to input information at different time points. So yeah, I think that answers your question, Nick. Katarina, did you have anything else to add?
Thanks.
Can I
might just turn off.
Well, I just add one more thing to go on the record. So today was really a brief overview about how it functions in Projector, and there is more training available. You just got to talk to Katarina or Meg or both, and there is training available in the questions themselves. So
that's right.
Yes.
Yeah. We are starting to roll out training to certain projects that are up and running now. We have, I guess, as new projects come online, we'll be able to offer training, you know, at any time, at any point in time as projects come online. And hopefully at some point, if there is a P2R regional roadshow happening, we'll get out to the regions as well, but we can deliver training online. And as Adam said, it's more, that training is more to do with, I guess, delivering the survey, what the questions are intended for, and tackling actual survey delivery, as opposed to this just what do you click in Projector to make it work.